Hello and welcome to Tuning In with Tom. My name is Thom Jennings, music writer for the Niagara Gazette, Lockport, Union, Sun, and Journal. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 3, and first thing we'll talk about is my column this week, which is about the Ohio Players. Now, the Ohio Players are going to be over at Niagara Falls View Casino this weekend, and if you had a chance to read my column, you'll know that we talked about a song called Love Rollercoaster. Now, Love Rollercoaster is an interesting song in that there is some urban legends that are associated with it. Depending on which version you listen to, there's a 45 or the single version as we call it, and then the LP version. But there's a point in the song, it's about 4 seconds long, where it sounds like there's a woman screaming in the background. Now, there's been a whole bunch of stories that have revolved around it. If you're familiar with the cover, it's a model. She's pouring honey on herself, and there's one story that says it was the scream of a woman who was getting burned by the honey because it was heated too much for the photo shoot. There's another one that says that there was a cleaning woman that was murdered in an adjoining studio while they were doing the recording session, which doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense because recording studios are designed to be quiet, so you're not going to hear somebody in the adjoining studio screaming. And again, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. As it turns out, the real story is a lot less exciting, and the Ohio Players members for years just didn't even discuss it because they knew it was good publicity for them. But it turns out it's just the keyboard player who was screaming. You know, back in those days, you got the funk songs and everything like that, and they're just like, ow! So that's all it is. It's just a guy screaming in the song just to add a little bit of emphasis. And, again, the other big song by the Ohio Players is Fire. I think we're all familiar with the one by Bruce Springsteen. This is a very different one. It's a more funk, soul, disco, and it's one of those songs that you hear on commercials and things like that. Other happenings, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just announced their inductees this week. They picked 5 from the list. You have the Doobie Brothers, who kind of makes sense because the Doobie Brothers are going on tour this summer. They're going to be at Darien Lake, and they have reunited with Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald was with him for a little while. Tom Johnston left. Tom Johnston came back. Michael McDonald left. So this is one of those rare opportunities to see both the Tom Johnston and Michael McDonald group together. It's kind of neat. So it's sort of special. They'll be able to also be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. I suspect that the two events are kind of associated, but that's another topic. Whitney Houston gets in. Pat Benatar does not. So I think there's probably a lot of people disappointed. There's only 8% of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees that are females. So it's a little surprising that they didn't make the effort to put in 2, and I think we can all agree that Pat Benatar is one of the more deserving Rock and Roll Hall of Fame potential inductees. Then there's T-Rex. Big song was Bang a Gong. They were an influence for David Bowie and the whole glam rock movement. 9 Inch Nails, industrial rock, and then Depeche Mode. They were known for that song Personal Jesus, one that I think it was around the 80s or something. Actually, Sammy Hagar does an interesting cover of Personal Jesus. You got to look that one up if you're a rock guy, not necessarily a new wave Depeche Mode person. Also, a couple other tours announced this week. Bon Jovi's going out with Bryan Adams. We're starting to see all these classic rock artists kind of bundled together for some of the bigger shows. That'd be a really cool one to see. Closest date for that one, unfortunately, is up in Toronto. And we also have Steely Dan and Steve Winwood that are going out together. I think they went out in 2017, maybe 2016. They've done a few dates, never really come close. The closest date that they have to us is going to be in Syracuse at the new Lakeview Amphitheater, which is a great venue to see a show if you haven't been. But, man, I'll tell you, if we could get Steely Dan and or Steve Winwood, or both, to come to Art Park for the Tuesdays in the Park series, that would be the best. The guy that books the shows over at Art Park, I've been bugging him for years. I said, Steve Winwood, I would love it if you could get him there. And then finally, I'd want to try to introduce maybe some new old vinyl. I do collect records. So in this week, I decided to pick one that's a little bit on the newer side. This one just came out last month. The band is called Dark Water. The members are Christian Bush, Brandon Bush, and Benji Shanks. Now, Christian Bush, you probably recognize that name if you're a Sugarland fan. He's the male half of Sugarland. One of my favorite live bands, by the way. Brandon Bush toured with Train, so he certainly has a unique background. And then I'm not really sure what Benji's association is with the group. But anyhow, the three of them, they record all the instruments. It's all original material. They've said in interviews that it's kind of like a Grateful Dead American Beauty era type style. I could see that. It has sort of a bluegrass Americana feel. So if you're into that kind of music, like I said, American Beauty era Grateful Dead, maybe the band, things like that, I think you'd really love this album. And of course, if you're a fan of Sugarland, you're going to love this album as well. Or if you just love great music. Anyhow, that's all I have for this week. I do appreciate you tuning in. This is episode 3. We're going to keep them coming. Email me if you have any suggestions about albums, shows. Even if you want to sit down, I'd be happy to interview any local musician that would be willing to sit down and just chat with me for a little while. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. Enjoy some good times with your friends. And hopefully I'll see you this weekend out at the Strictly Hip Show, where they're going to be performing fully completely. All right. Once again, thanks for tuning in with Tom. We'll see you next week.